it's Jordan, and I am sharing today with you how I prep a vegan lunch every day to take to work. Now, in this video, I'm going to show you how I prepped one recipe for 3 lunches that I took for the work week. And I go to work 5 days a week, so you're probably like, well, why would you only do 3? And that's just what has worked best for me. So typically I make 3 meals, sometimes 4, just so that I don't get sick of the same thing. So what I do first is I flip through some of my favorite plant-based cookbooks, go on Pinterest or go on some of my favorite blogs, and just see if there's anything that kind of stands out to me that I really think sounds good or just feels like it'll be a really good lunch. I sometimes also will take into consideration what's in season. So I do get emails from the indoor farmers market in my town. So I always, even if I can't make it to the farmers market, I always like to look and see what they're gonna have. That way I know exactly what's in season. So that sometimes inspires me as well. But I never truly follow a recipe when I'm making lunches or dinners, but I just use them for inspiration. So this week, for example, I was looking at thekitchen.com, and I will link the recipe that inspired me below. And they had this really amazing bowl that was butternut squash spiced with garam masala, amaranth, which is kind of like a pseudo grain similar to quinoa, and some greens on the side, and it was all put together in this bowl. And I'm pretty sure there was a dressing, maybe, I'm not sure, but it was all cooked, and it just looked so comforting and yummy and delicious. And I thought, you know, I think I'm gonna use that for inspiration. But I ended up using sweet potatoes, raw greens instead of cooked greens, and I used quinoa instead of amaranth because I have quinoa in my pantry, and I knew that I could easily swap that in and I wouldn't have to buy anything new. I already had it. So that's how I kind of get inspired and just kind of tweak different recipes to make them what I want. It's very rare that I ever truly follow a recipe by the book. After I do my grocery shopping on either Saturday, typically Sunday though, I get everything home, and in the afternoon, that's when I do my lunch meal prep. And start to finish, it usually only takes me max 1 hour. I mean, this one I think probably took me less than 45 minutes. So all of the recipes that I usually use are really super easy. There's nothing major involved, no heavy equipment involved, nothing like that. Before we get into the recipe, I wanna say thank you so much for watching. If you are brand new to my channel, I would love if you would consider hitting the little red button below and subscribing to my channel so you don't miss any new videos that are upcoming. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you like it. It really helps my channel grow, and I would really, really appreciate it. So now let's go ahead and get into the recipe so I can show you how I made this delicious spiced sweet potato and quinoa bowl. Okay, so here is everything that you're going to need to make this vegan lunch meal prep. I will link all the ingredients with correct measurements down in the description below, so if you miss anything, just check down there. First, we're gonna start by cooking our quinoa, and I've got 1 cup of dry quinoa, and I'm adding just under 2 cups of water. That is my secret to perfect quinoa. Go a little bit under the amount of water that's recommended, and you will end up with perfect fluffy quinoa that's not still soaked in water by the time is up. And I'm adding this Better Than Boullion Vegetable broth base, and this is just really economical, and I think it can make up to like 28 cups of vegetable broth, so I use that. Then you're going to take the quinoa over to the stove and boil it, then bring it down to low and simmer for 15 minutes. Next, we've got to cut up our sweet potato, so I use a wet paper towel to stabilize my wooden cutting board, just makes it a lot easier. So then you've got your 2 large sweet potatoes, and you're just going to chop them up with a sharp knife into inch cubes. Then set them aside and get a glass bowl, and we are going to steam the sweet potatoes in the microwave. I do this because it's a little bit quicker and easier for me, but you could definitely use the stove or an Instant Pot or whatever kind of steamer method that you have to cook vegetables. And then this is where we use the spices. So I am using 2 teaspoons of garam masala, which is amazing on sweet potatoes. It's slightly sweet, slightly spicy. And then I'm just adding some kosher salt and some black pepper. Then I'm gonna add a little bit of water just to help out the steaming process, and it's better than using oil, and I can help the sweet potatoes get coated in all the spice mixture. Then I just put a glass lid on and take it over to the microwave. My microwave has a sensor cook function that allows me to cook hard vegetables, so I just set it to that and let it go. Then while the vegetables are cooking, it's time to prep the greens. I have these beautiful, huge collard green leaves, and you just need to strip the leaves from the tough stem so you can pull it down the stem just like I did, or you can cut using a sharp knife. Just removes the leaf from the really fibrous stem because you don't want to eat that. And then what I like to do is roll them up long ways so that I can cut them in these beautiful little strips. And then you end up with these really pretty, almost spaghetti-like strands of collard green leaves. And it just makes it easier to eat, I think, along with the other things. And then I just put them in a salad spinner because I had rinsed the leaves under some water beforehand. And you just want to dry them because they'll keep a little bit better in the fridge, and any dressing you add to them will stick a lot better if they're dry. Then once I've cut up all my collard leaves, I just add them to a Ziploc bag with a paper towel at the bottom because this just absorbs any extra moisture and it will keep a lot longer in the fridge this way. So then I'm just gonna clean up and we are ready for the next step, which is going to be to make the dressing. Now, I have never made this dressing before. I was kind of making it up on the fly, but what I did was add 1/3 cup of apple cider vinegar, and I started with 2 tablespoons of just regular raw tahini. Added a little bit of salt and pepper, and I just started mixing that up. I decided to add 1 more tablespoon of tahini because I just wanted my dressing to be a bit thicker. Then I added some chia seeds just to make it even more thicker and add some really great omega-3s and healthy fats to the dressing. I really liked this dressing. It's very tart and acidic, but yet creamy and satisfying from the tahini. I would recommend adding like a touch of maple syrup or your sweetener of choice. Maybe if you're not used to eating raw apple cider vinegar, because it can be quite potent if you're not used to it. So a little sweetness would take the edge off, but I thought it was delicious. Then to pair with the apple cider vinegar and tahini dressing, I'm going to chop up an apple, and today I'm using a Fuji apple. They're my favorite. They're so sweet. And I'm just removing the core from them so I can chop them into really thin slices, and they're just going to garnish my lunch every day. Now my quinoa is done and it looks like this. Smells amazing with that vegetable broth, and as you can see, it's super light and fluffy and ready to go. And now my sweet potatoes are done. They smelled incredible. They were super hot, so I was being really careful with the lid, and I just checked them to make sure that they were nice and tender, so I just used a fork and pierced one to make sure I could get through it. And then just stirred it up to make sure all the pieces were coated with the spices. So now that everything's ready, we are going to add all the components to my little containers. I like to use glass containers. These are by Meal Prep. They are awesome. I got them on Amazon as a little Christmas gift to myself, and I'm so glad that I did. So I just evenly distribute the quinoa first into each glass dish. Then add some sweet potato on the bottom. And then that's all you want to prep in your container. I'm just going to put the lid on and put them in the fridge. And the other components I am going to bag up separately in these re-zip reusable bags. These are awesome and a great alternative to Ziplocs. I'm trying to reduce the amount of waste that we produce in the house, and these are just a really great option. They're BPA free. So I'm going to add about a serving of some apple slices, and I'm going to add my greens just right to this same bag. And all I'm gonna have to do is just take this one bag to work, put it on top of the quinoa and the sweet potato, and add the dressing, and I'm ready to go. It's just easier to keep the two separate so that nothing gets soggy. And when you eat it, it tastes really fresh, like you just made it. It doesn't taste like you had it days ago. So here are the 3 things that are going in my lunch bag: the quinoa and the sweet potatoes, the collard greens and apple slices, and my container of dressing. And I actually don't even put an ice bag in or any kind of cooler in my bag. I just eat it at room temperature and it tastes great. So this is what it looked like. I plated it up on a plate that I keep at work, and I just put the greens on top and the apple slices around. Then I just added some of the dressing, which got nice and thick from the chia seeds. I just added a big dollop on top. And the combination of the dressing and the crunchy apple and collard greens with the sweet potato was so incredible. I love adding raw vegetables to cooked ingredients. It was so good. I was actually really impressed. So that recipe worked out really, really well. I ended up taking it last Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday to work, and it was delicious. The greens and the apples stayed fresh the whole 3 days, which was incredible. If you want to make it for all 5 days, you certainly could just increase the serving size of the prep. So maybe like add an additional sweet potato, chop up a little extra greens, maybe chop up 2 apples instead of 1, and cook up maybe a cup and a half of quinoa just to get you all the way to 5 days. That's something I might do in the future, because after Wednesday, after finishing my last one, I was really sad because it was so good and I really looked forward to eating it. The tahini and apple cider vinegar dressing with the chia seeds though, oh my gosh, like that was a great dip even of itself. Like I could have dipped any vegetable in that and ate it. So Thursday and Friday I ended up taking leftover soup from one I pulled out from the freezer, and one was from a dinner that I had made earlier in the week, so that worked out. But yeah, you could really pick and choose how you want to do it. There's no right or wrong way to meal prep. This is just what has worked really well for me, and it's kind of the system that I use. As I am now on a 100% plant-based diet, it is really helpful for me to have things prepped to eat that I'm really excited about eating. I would love to know what your favorite lunches to take to work, to school are these days, because I always am looking for some new inspiration, and sometimes I find that the best inspiration is from people just talking and engaging on YouTube and Instagram. So I would love to know. Leave a comment down below. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week, if not sooner, in my next video. Bye. Books, Pinterest, my favorite blogs. What I tip, oh my God. A 100% plant-based diet. It's really helpful.